I made the ultimate commander deck for beginners, and I'm going to show you guys exactly how I did it. And not only that, but I'm also going to share with you guys the story as to why I created this deck in the first place. Now, when we're talking about a beginner deck, we need some specific criteria to be able to identify whether a deck is for beginners or not. And I have come up with 3 of these criteria pieces that I think every beginner deck should fall under. So number 1, it should be cheap, okay? Beginners, new players, they do not have a lot of cash lying around to just invest into a game that they've never played or played very little, okay? So the upfront cash needs to be cheap. Number 2 is it's easy to pilot. Now, beginners are learning the game. So if they have a complex game on top of that, it's just not going to work because their brain power is already invested quite a lot into figuring out when they're allowed to do something or not, when they play a certain card, whatever. So if you chuck in loads of complex strategies, they don't have the brain power to be able to learn how to play and then try and strategize at the same time. So the deck needs to be simple, easy to understand, and it's very important that beginners can win because then they are going to have so much more fun. If a beginner can feel their deck doing the thing and they can see they're comboing off and having lots of fun, then they're more likely to play again. Number 3, these cards should not include anything that has an essay in the text box, right? Again, they're learning how to play. They don't need a massive text box with all these different things, with 4 or 5 different things going on at once. So those are our 3 criteria, and I built a commander deck around these criteria. But first, I want to share the story with you as to why I built this commander deck. And it all started with a discussion with my sister over Christmas presents. So she was saying that she would like some Magic the Gathering themed Christmas presents, right? So we was like to-ing and fro-ing of what she would like. And I sort of flirted the idea of, hey, how would you feel about if I built you a deck? I can understand if someone doesn't want that. They want to build their own deck, make it their own sort of thing. But she was like, absolutely. The idea of building a deck is super overwhelming for me. So if you could take that stress out of the process and give me a nice, template to go off, and then that way if I want to start editing, I can. I've got something to go off instead of building a deck from scratch. So I was like, okay, noted. And then we sort of just started discussing, well, what sort of decks are you looking to build next? And on the top of her list was the Black Panther deck. This is because she bought a Black Panther secret lair. It was sitting in her binder and, she couldn't wait to build a deck around it. She also liked the idea of building a Bloomborough themed deck. She loved the rabbits, green-white paired with Black Panther beautifully. And then when I looked at what Black Panther actually does, it allows you to benefit from having creatures enter the battlefield. Rabbits make loads of tokens. That's their thing. So they paired perfectly. So we kind of joked around and was like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if, there was a deck where Black Panther was leading an army of rabbits? And she was like, yeah, like that is what I want to do. Absolutely. So I set it off as my task to build a deck that was tailored towards Shannon. And if you don't know, Shannon likes things nice and simple. I talk about where she had a little bit of struggle with her first precon. If you want to check that out, check out my Your First Precon Matters video where I talk about this story in a lot more depth. But basically, I wanted to build a deck that would be tailored towards Shannon's needs, okay? So that meant simple to understand cards, and it also meant, easy to pilot. The cheap part was just because, well, I'm building this deck for Christmas. Building commander decks can be quite expensive, so I couldn't afford to spend a load of cash. And also, I wanted to make it so, it was kind of around the price of a precon, and that way she could have room to sort of improve on it in the future. So I had my criteria, I had my theme, so I jumped straight into Architect, and this is where we're going to talk about this deck now. So let's have a little look at the deck profile on Architect. So we have the deck here. This is my Black Panther deck. Now, I'm not going to go into detail on every card in the deck. I'm just going to show you kind of my thought process and how I was able to build this deck around the criteria that I set myself. So number 1 was price. That's quite easy to talk about. I just went into Scryfall, went into the price filter, and then just put, don't show me cards more than $1. I will say not every card in here is worth less than $1 because I included cards that Shannon already owned, stuff that I knew would go well in the deck. So obviously we've got the Black Panther secret lair cards. In fact, I'm just going to go here to price so we can just have a look straight up the most expensive cards in here. So stuff like Caretaker's Talent. This is a well, no more than $10 actually. It's around £10. So let's say, you know, $15 card, right? This is a card that Shannon already owned. Worked perfect with the deck. It was on theme. It's got a bloody rabbit in the art. So it was going straight in. Obviously, the Secret Lair cards, we've got like Nature's Law and stuff like that. Heroic Intervention. Obviously, these are not budget cards, but they are in here. And then other than that, we had ones that were like slightly over the budget, like Warren War Leader here. It needed to go in the deck. It's a rabbit deck. It just had to be included. And it works with the deck so well. It's not too complicated. One of the more texty cards in the deck, but, you know, when I read it, I didn't think Shannon would really have an issue understanding it, and spoiler alert, she doesn't. So yeah, I thought definitely we'll include that. So that's the price criteria met. The next criteria was easy to pilot. Well, making loads of tokens and just triggering creature enters abilities with Black Panther is not very hard to wrap your head around. You know, like a lot of these cards just make tokens or benefit you from making tokens or having lots of creatures on the battlefield. Loads of pump abilities because this deck has lots of weak stuff. So basically play loads of tokens, trigger Black Panther loads of times, pump up all your stuff, go burr. That is the deck strategy. Super simple, easy to understand. Very similar to one of her decks that she already owned, that I know she enjoys. And, you know, she's not one of these that she wants to go all these crazy different directions yet. She knows what she likes and she wants more of it. So that is what I wanted to give her with this deck. So that's what this deck does. So that's criteria number 2. And number 3, it has cards that are easy to understand. Now, how did I lean into this even more? I went straight to Magic Foundations. I went onto Scryfall, went on the filter, and then we looked at cards that would be in the Commander's color identity that worked well with the deck. So I just want to highlight some of those cards now. Things like Anthem of Champions, right? Creatures you control get +1/+1. That's it. It's perfect, works really well with the deck, nice and cheap, and it's super simple to understand. Let's actually go here and go on to type so we can look at the creatures, because there's something I want to show here. Good Fortune Unicorn. Whenever another creature you control enters, put a counter. Well, that's going to go perfect in this deck, powering up your stuff. Nice, simple, easy to understand. And it's not just our creatures that are simple and easy to understand. Look at our board wipe. Day of Judgment. Destroy all creatures. Full stop. That's it. This card has 3 words on it. That is what I like. It was going straight in. It's not even a bad card, okay? So, you know, simple doesn't mean bad. And then we have got our win cons. 2 lovely Magic Foundations cards here. Preposterous Proportions. Creatures you control get +10/+10 and gain Vigilance. The fact that this card gives your cards Vigilance is also so beginner friendly because it takes the risk out of attacking. You're still going to have blockers, so you don't even have to really think. You just pick who you want to kill and just swing with +10/+10. Because chances are your opponents are not going to have creatures powerful enough to block your 10/10 cards. And then we've got Overrun. Creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain Trample. So if they're already quite big with all the counters from Black Panther, slap this down. All your stuff has Trample. GG's. Another theme that I wanted to add in this deck, which was also quite flavorful, is soldiers. These were to represent Wakanda's warriors, but also because one of Shannon's favorite Magic memes is the one with Robert Baratheon holding an empty sleeve, and it's like, you will be a soldier. So I wanted to include cards that would make soldiers or soldier tokens so that Shannon could say, you will be a soldier. It sounds stupid, but, you know, she absolutely loves it. So an example of this, let's have a, if I can find it here. Here we go. Dauntless Veteran. When this creature attacks, creatures you control get +1/+1 to the end of the turn. So this is a soldier. This doesn't make a soldier, but it is a soldier, and it buffs all of her stuff. Perfect. Crusader of Odric, again, human soldier. Okay, so let's have a look at, is there anything on here that creates soldiers? Guarded Air doesn't create soldiers, but it creates knights. So when this creature enters, create 2 free white knight creature tokens. 3 Black Panther triggers right there. And it has lifelink, so if you buff this up, you're going to be getting lots of life. So yeah, the deck is hitting all the criteria. It's got the theme, it's got the flavor, which was very important to her. So the most important question is, how does this deck play? What was her experience with this deck? And I can tell you she was popping off on the first game with this deck. I also noticed that in her turn, she wasn't spending forever sort of sitting there like trying to work out what cards do. A lot of the time, if she doesn't know, she has to like sort of show me the card and go, can you explain this to me? There was none of that, and this was a brand new deck, so that told me straight away that this deck is doing exactly what I wanted. Perfect. And it shows that you can have a simple deck and it still be effective, okay? You don't need complex cards in order to win games of Commander. Yes, complex cards are more fun, in my opinion, but, you know, there is a market for this sort of deck. And a lot of time that market is for new players. So I just really wanted to share this with you guys because, again, I've made a video on this already, so if you haven't watched it, check it out, the first Precon Matters videos. But it's so easy to get a precon that does not suit you, or is just going to be too complicated for a new player. I mean, look at the Living Energy deck that's just come out of Ether Drift. I would not give that to a new player. That'd be a terrible idea. Precons are not starter decks, okay? And the starter decks that they have made for Commander is very, very few. They are said to be really, really sort of not good enough to compete with other precons, really. So unless you give them some upgrades. But this is a perfect example of a deck that is simple, easy to understand, and can compete with precons. Now, some of you are probably thinking, ooh, Black Panther's not good for beginners because no one's going to be able to get hold of that. I hear that. But I'm not telling you to build this exact deck. It's just use this sort of methodology when building the deck. You could easily just take Black Panther out and use Phineas as the deck. I would change it around a little bit to try and get some more rabbit synergy in the deck, but you know, yeah, you could definitely do that and the deck would still work. So yeah, this is a really nice methodology if you want to build a deck for a beginner. Maybe have one in your collection to give to new players, or maybe you're a new player yourself and you don't want to build a deck that is going to sit there having your cogs turning and, you know, you just sitting there taking 20 minutes to figure out what a card even does. You want something simple, easy to understand. Green go brr. So yeah, there you go, guys. There is my ultimate beginner's deck. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let's get a little discussion going. How do you build decks to accommodate for new players? Maybe I missed some things. You can let me know. Other than that, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Cheers.